Now, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to go on to the first session today, and we'd like to read the citation of Dr. Bugaje. But just before that, let me just remind us again, we have as the theme of today's occasion, though tribe and tongue may differ, interrogating Nigeria's nationhood. And I'd like to inform our father and invite him as well, Dr. Usman Bugaje, former honorable member, House of Representatives. The citation would be taken by Aisha Abdul Karim, and that will be shared on our screen shortly.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, everybody. And I'll be taking the profile of Dr. Usman Bugaje. Dr. Usman Bugaje is an Islamic scholar, political activist, and civil society leader and thinker from Nigeria. Initially trained as a pharmacist, his postgraduate studies have included an MA in the Interdisciplinary Social Science Program of African Studies at the Institute of African and Asian University of Khartoum, and a doctorate in Intellectual History of West Africa, focusing on the tradition of Tajdid in Western Bilad as Sudan from the same institution. He has served as special advisor on political affairs to the Nigerian Vice President Alhaj Atiku Abubakar in the presidency for 1999 to 2003. In 2003, he was elected to represent the Kaita Jibaya Federal Constituency at the Federal House of Representatives, where he chaired the House Committee on Foreign Affairs. Dr. Bugaje was appointed National Secretary of the Action Congress, where he worked to institutionalize democratic reforms and greater participation of women. He contested for the governorship of Katsina State under the Action Congress. In 2016, he declined an offer from President Buhari to consider an ambassadorial appointment. He is a long-standing distinguished visitor in African Politics Program of African Studies, John Hopkins. His contributions to civil society include governorship of the Arewa Research and Development Project, a public policy group that is promoting policies to restore stable governance and stimulate economic renewal in the northern states of Nigeria. He has also been a member of the governing board of IRCICA, Research Center for Islamic History, Arts and Culture. He is also the founding chairman of Network for Justice and an advocacy group concerned civil education, consumer and human rights. He has also been prominent in the work of the Islam in Africa organization and later the Transition Monitoring Group, TMG, the first indigenous election monitoring group which monitored the 1999 elections. Dr. Bugaje is an author of numerous book reviews published in the Muslim World Book Review and the range of conference papers and academic articles. Some examples from his corpus are provided below. God and Good Governance, 2009, Towards a Global Women Islamic Movement, 1995, The Role of Muslim Women in the Transformation of the Nigerian Society, 1996, and Women's Empowerment and Islam, 1997. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. Usman Bugaje. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Dr. Bugaje, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. Let me first say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and particularly send my greetings to Baba Alhaji Femi Okunu and also my fellow panelists, especially my very good friend Pat Otomi. I'm very glad that he's here, and I think this is how we should be discussing issues of national significance at this level. I don't think we have much time. My sense is that we have already taken nearly half of the time, so I don't know how much time I have, but I don't want to take more than 30 minutes at the very maximum, maybe less, particularly because I have to request to take leave by 12.
Yes, you have 30 minutes.
Very good.
30 minutes.
Very good. I will try to keep to that, and I would also request to be allowed to take leave at 12. I have some condolence to give for 1 hour, about an hour, and then I have to start a 6-hour journey by road. So I'm sure you understand the constraints. Let me first say that this is a very important topic. We all know the issues on the radar today. And the issue of Nigerian nationhood has been called to question in the last 1-2 decades, when a lot of people have expressed their dissatisfaction. Some will call it resentment with the Nigerian Federation. If we look very carefully, we will see that it's not so much the Nigerian Federation that is the problem. I think when we reduce the problems of this country to what they are, we come back to one very important factor, and that is leadership. I think we have to understand that whatever ideas we generate, whatever solutions we provide, implement them if we do not have the requisite, the appropriate leadership to do so. I will come back to this as my last point, but I want to start with it so that we can be very clear about what we are doing. Now, the problems that we are facing and the problems we want to interrogate is a problem that is not unique to Nigeria. Many African states have had to struggle with the issues of nation building. And it's understandable in the sense that a lot of African states were crafted by colonial fiat. It's not something that developed naturally. If you go back into history of nations, you don't have to go to Europe. They had very tumultuous history. But even if you look at the history of our own part of Africa, you know, the transition from the great Ghana empire into Mali, from Mali to Songhai. And if you look at the Kanem Borno, we have had a fairly smooth transition from one empire to the other because there was this natural process of social integration that has been taking place through trade, through movement of people, and you move in, you intermarry, you learn the cultures, you blend, and you generate new dimensions. This is the natural way human societies have evolved over time. But the colonial fiat seemed to have stampeded us in creating. Without colonization, we would have still been able to have Nigeria, different from the one that has been, because we are neighbors to each other. Ultimately, as our population grow, our needs will increase. We will communicate. We will exchange. Some have got certain things that are unique that the other parties will require. And that's how life has always been over the last 2, 3, 4 millennia that we have got recorded history. Therefore, it's not something to say, okay, without the European intervention, we would not have. No, I mean, anybody who has a sense of history will know that this was bound to happen anyway. But the fact that we were created by colonial fiat created a challenge. How do we now, if you like, fast track that process of social integration that would have taken a natural course, which would be much slower, but much more, if you like, much more adequate or much more mature, over time. So the challenge we have, and it's not Nigeria alone, is that anytime you bring people of different cultures, different perspectives, different, if you like, world views, you have got to find a way of managing that diversity. Now, where I think we have failed is in managing our own diversities. In most African states, there are 3 critical areas of conflict. One is, how do we share natural resources? 2, how do we share power, political power? 3, how do we share identities? Now, you don't share identities. You can manage them. And over time, these issues will be resolved. So the issue of natural resources is the easiest to do. You can always sit around the table and agree on a sharing formula. This can change from time to time, as we have seen. We have got our own different sharing formulas, which is usually done in the National Assembly. Whenever we are not happy with that, we can always go back to the National Assembly and change it. So this is not a very big problem, because it's something that you can work out through negotiations around the table. Similarly, you can negotiate how to share power. Some political parties have developed rotations, zoning, and then this is not in our constitution, but it's in the constitution of the political parties, which is just as well. It's another way of saying, okay, if there are going to be conflict about who has power, let's see how we can resolve it. And different parties might come up with different formula. But what is important is that you can develop a formula to share this. With identity, you cannot share this identity around the table. And this is where the major problem arises. So what you need to do here is to manage diversity. Now, there are so many other ways of managing diversity. But I think in our own peculiar case, and my own understanding, is that we have muddled up, we have mixed up so many things. So I think what we need is to come back and to clarify. And this issue of clarity, precision, and accuracy is what our education today has not given us. Because a proper liberal education will give you a critical mind. And that mind will allow you to interrogate your own ideas, your own selves, your own understanding. And it will bring you clarity, it will bring you accuracy, it will bring you precision in what you do. This is missing. The elite, that are supposed to be the educated elite, that are supposed to guide the country, that are supposed to explain, are themselves not very clear on a number of issues. And because of this, we tend to confuse unity and uniformity. We think being, to be united, you must be uniform. It has never happened. There are no societies that are completely homogeneous. Even those that are thought to be, and are not very good examples, of contemporary societies. Look at Somalia. Basically one tribe, one religion, but look at the chaos that is there. So it's not to say that when you are diverse, you are going to have conflict. No. So conflict is not coming from the diversity. It's coming from other factors. And it is this kind of analysis and clarity that we need to bring in our own, in the understanding of our own difficulties, our own problems. So the first thing I think we need to distinguish between unity and uniformity. I mentioned absolutely unnecessary, because the fact that somebody decides to wear a particular cloth, you're not the one that is wearing it. If a Christian decides to wear a cross, you as a Muslim, what is your problem? What is your business, really? That's okay for you. I mean, he likes it. In fact, you can help him, to be happy, to be comfortable. So this is the one area that we need to. The second area I think that we need to, that we have to, is beauty and there is strength. And something that is, in fact, that is a very strong scientific basis. You go to agriculture, monocultures in agriculture are the weakest. It is the diversity in agriculture that actually brings out its own strength. And therefore, you have to, realize scientifically diversities are strength. So it's an asset. And we need to understand that so that we do not see it as a liability. In fact, it's an asset. It gives beauty, it gives strength in so many other ways. I don't want to get into the scientific technical areas. A lot of you on the platform would know this more than I do, but I think it's a point that needs to be taken. The third, and I think equally important point, is that because of lack of trust that has come in, we have failed to develop an elite consensus in this country. There is hardly a consensus on anything in Nigeria. You find conflict where there is no need for conflict at all, because we are not communicating. And you can see that, okay, we talk to each other, but a lot of the time we just abuse each other. We denigrate each other. We look down upon each other. Because we don't understand ourselves. And that is this example and understanding that is usually used in the books. I mean, let me use Mustafa. Mustafa Kelani, everybody knows you. I mean, people around you know you, isn't it? I mean, many, in fact, would know you more than you would know them. But how many people understand you? Very few. So the issue of understanding is so important. We have to create time. We have to labor your mind to be able to understand. And we don't seem to understand ourselves. And this is why we're always it's like we're using different kind of language. Nobody understands the other. So we're not communicating. So I think these are the basic things that we need to I think focus on when we need to resolve or address this particular issue. Now let me come to, by way of winding up, to say what is it that we need to do. Now let me first address Muslims. We are on a platform where there are lots of Muslims, and this is a Muslim alumni. And I think we need to go back. And I would like to think in Christianity, because the source of these books, the religious books, are the same. They may have gone through certain processes in certain, but the essence of the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the same. And the verse that you have rightly selected for Muslims really solves all these problems. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَىٰ وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا لِتَعَارَفُوا إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِندَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. It's very clear. God has informed us that He has deliberately created in different forms, different shapes, tribes and nations and colors and so many other. This diversity is from God Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what did He say at the end of the day? He said, "Inna akramakum indallah atqakum." The fact that at the end of the day, what really matters is that relationship between you and God. The closer you are to God, the better you are as a human being. So Muslims, at least, must not be caught in that parochial thinking of ethnicity, even religion. Because again, Allah has informed us. لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلونكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم. Allah has never stopped you from dealing with people who have not fought you, who have not ejected you from your dwellings, to be very kind to them, to associate with them, to help them. In fact, at the end, he said, Allah loves those people who are reaching out to others, to live with them peacefully, to help them. Muqsitin. So, and in many other verses of the Quran, you will find that Islam, in its very origin, has been a global religion. It has never been a parochial religion. It has always taken the world together. In fact, for a Muslim, anybody you come across who is not a Muslim, for you as a Muslim, he is a potential Muslim. If he does not become a Muslim, it's not his fault, it's your fault as a Muslim for not extending Islam to him, for not showing him the beauty of Islam. So it's your failure, not his own failure. And so Islam is global. Islam is, if anything, Islam prioritizes your humanity. And Islam is not parochial. Islam does not care about what tribe you come from. It does not care what color of skin you have. It does not care where you are born. It cares about your character, your quality, your humanity, the way you relate to others, the way you come across to others. And in fact, it has in so many places, the Quran has advised us, in fact, have instructed us to rise and accommodate others, help others, irrespective of where they are. I mean, what religion they are, or what tribe they are, or what ethnicity, or whatever. So if you put all these things together, I would say that Muslims, perhaps more than others, should be the ones to really lead in this process, in our case in Nigeria, in bringing this country together, in accommodating everybody, in understanding, because these things have been clearly spelled down in the Quran. And the Prophet ﷺ, in his own ways, he has brought in Bilal from Habasha within his own companions. There was Salman from Persia. He talked about China. So he has already introduced a global picture of his own community. So the idea of even ethnic or you are coming from this place, I mean, it's something that must not be the problem of a Muslim. And therefore, we as Muslims should lead, if anything, this process. And like I said, I would like to think the Bible has also done similar things. So if we will go back to these, books, which are the eternal guidance of our community, we will, solve a lot of these problems. Let me finally say what needs to be done. I think we need to put policies in place that can help us overcome these problems. And I'm glad that my brother, the Honorable Minister Alhaji Mohammed, is here. And I would like to specifically say that the National Orientation Agency could have done a lot of work. I cannot understand why this allows the National Orientation Agency, that has offices in 774 local governments, to talk to citizens, to bring them up to speed, and to bring about the kind of changes in the mindsets that needs to be done. This is one policy that I think is needed. If we have done this for the last 6 years, it is unlikely that this hatred, this animosity, this conflict that we have seen at the social level, I don't think would have been there. So I think this is one clear policy that we must come out with. And then I would like to suggest that the elite, Muslims and non-Muslims, must come together and create a consensus, a national consensus on some of the big issues of this country. And these issues relate to the Nigerian nation itself. What kind of nation are we going to have? It's not a question of, okay, there is a lot of talk about restructuring. Restructuring itself needs to be clarified because restructuring has actually been taking place. It's not like now, some people speak as if this is the first time we're going to start restructuring. Baba spoke about the different type of constitutions, Macpherson, the Richard Constitution. All these are restructuring processes. And every country in the world is going through restructuring every now and then. And this is how it is because human society is dynamic. So you can't lock it up in a particular structure. Population increase, new ideas are coming, new difficulties arise. Therefore, you have to always be making the necessary adjustments to make sure that people are getting the best of what opportunities are there. Therefore, I think we need to have an elite consensus around what kind of country are we going to have. But in doing so, we should not be led by the limited vision of politicians. As you know, politicians are said to be always looking at the next election, which for us is the next 4 years. Most of the vision of politicians does not go beyond the next 4 years when they are going to get re-elected. But statesmen always think about the next generation. The most sensible thing for us is to look at the next generation. What can we do to create a country for the next? And if you are looking at the next generation, you are looking at the next 20, 30 years. In 10 years' time, the population of this country is expected to be 300 million. The projections of the United Nations that in the next 30 years, which is 2050, we're going to be nearly 450 million. And that will make us the third most populous country after India and China. Now, the issues ahead of us, therefore, is how do we feed this population? How do we educate them? How do we provide jobs for them? These are the issues that should occupy us. Not this is Yoruba, this is Hausa Fulani, this is this, this is that. This is primitive. It's a shame. It's a scandal, really. Because the challenges ahead of us are far beyond these petty, irrelevant, inconsequential matters. The real consequential issues are you have a growing country, you have to compete with the rest of the world. How can Nigeria be more competitive? How can we realize the potentials? How can we exploit those natural resources? At the moment, not up to 40% of our agricultural land has been put to use. And in this 40%, we have got not up to 20% of its actual yield. I just gave you a small statistic that I've been working with in the last few months. The average for tomato production in Nigeria is only 5 to 6 metric tons per hectare. The African average is about 20. But Cuba, which is a small country here, is doing 120 metric tons per hectare. We can do that. And then we will now not have to not to import tomato paste. In 2014 or 2013, thereabouts, Nigeria was the largest importer of tomato paste in the world. We have the land to produce it. We can sell. In fact, we can be the largest producer of tomato paste in the world. We have the capacity to do that. These are the issues we should be engaging with, not the issues of which tribe you come from, what religion you are, whether the Igbos should be the president this time, the North will have it. I mean, these are honestly, these are silly things. Because if I'm going to the airport, to take a plane, let's say from Abuja to Lagos, should I be asking about what tribe is the pilot? How does that help me? I should be worried about his certificate, his competence. Right? Because I'm not going to speak in Yoruba, I'm not going to speak Igbo, or speak in Fulfulde or anything. So please, let's get our priorities right. And it's the elite that must lead this process. And we must be seen to be together in discussing these issues. And I do hope that Muslims should go back to their books and bring out some of these excellent ideas about, building nations, about productivity, about the prioritization of knowledge, about competence, about all these things that can solve the problems of this country. And I'm glad. I would like to stop here, hoping that other panelists will bring other dimensions that I may not have taken up and enrich the debate. And I hope at the end there will be a very good conclusion, and not only just a conclusion, a kind of timeline, action points with timelines. Thank you very much for listening.